Hello, everyone. Sorry about that technical glitch. That was Cuckoo Bananas, actually. I have not experienced that yet. I'm broadcasting on a platform called StreamYard, so hopefully this one works. All right, everyone, thank you for being here. Hello, my name is Daniela Saioni. I coach and train script supervisors internationally. I have been in the film business and am in the film business for 34 years now. I've shot in 10 countries on major motion pictures and TV series that you have seen. You can find me on IMDb. But today I'm actually here to talk about motivating my students and alumni. The topic today is Breakthrough and Thrive in 2025. The reason I wanted to do this talk today is I'm seeing a lot of people lose faith and lose hope. If you saw my live last week, we were talking about something totally different. We were talking about monetizing social media. No more beeping. Yay. Okay, great. Thank you. We were talking last week about monetizing social media. A whole bunch of script supervisors showed up, and some of the new generation were saying that they felt like it was really hopeless. Like the film industry is basically a dumpster fire right now. You can choose to see it that way, or you can choose an abundant mindset. And today I'm going to talk about how I have been able to survive in the industry for so many decades because of an abundance mindset. And we'll talk about what that means. I want to talk about the stages of a script supervision career as well, because when we talk about breakthroughs in a script supervision career, it means different things to different people, because you're not going to jump from brand new to A-list script supervisor or to director, although in some cases it can happen really fast. But it's like you rarely, almost never, not, I never say never, but you almost never will skip some of the breakthrough steps. And certainly if you don't have the mindset, you're not going to really be able to keep going in one of those steps, even if you jump ahead, right, to some of the breakthrough levels. Some of you may have seen my talk from 2022. It was called Breakthrough to the Next Level of Your Career and Enjoy It. And this is basically an updated version of that. And I'll tell you today about my new coaching program, which is specifically for the people in the higher levels of breakthrough, because my training program addresses people in the early levels of breakthrough quite handily. But I want to also help people who are facing, I was going to say bigger problems, facing bigger opportunities. There's an abundance mindset. So I used to say there were 4 levels of breakthrough in a script career. I've updated it to 5 because it's actually valid to think about retiring joyfully as a 5th stage of breakthrough, because I'm also seeing my peers who've been around as long as I have or more really struggling with the idea of retirement. They're not ready for it. They're not doing it joyfully. They feel stuck, if you don't, okay, one of the takeaways from today is that I want to impart. Although I'm talking about career strategy, I'm talking about being intentional and everything. The most important thing of all in any successful career is that you enjoy it, is that you're happy. Okay. And if you're not happy, to either shift your mindset or figure out how to navigate out of it to find your happiness, right? No one's ever forcing us to stay in script supervision. People last week, when I was telling the young people, don't quit the film industry, they're like, well, what if they're not happy and they want to quit? I guess I should have said, don't quit until you've given it a chance, because we're in one of those phases in the film industry where everything's in transition, and some people haven't had an actual real shot at experiencing the levels of joy. Okay, but let's, on a practical level, start with just the regular levels of breakthrough. When you're a brand new script supervisor, you're freshly trained or you're about to start training, the very first level obviously would be to get your first long form credit. So, I mean, yes, of course, it's important to actually start and do short films and everything, but a long form credit, a feature film, usually it's an indie feature, right? A first level of breakthrough is going from trained and like doing shorts to like an indie feature. Sometimes you get sometimes that's a web series for some people. Sometimes now that's a vertical feature. Next week, you'll see our panel on vertical features. That's the new indie feature in some cities in the world. But, a long form project where you are the main unit script supervisor and you're fully in charge of the script supervision in that project. A number of people in my training program, when they complete the program, I do have a number of people who join the program as veterans, but most people start it brand new, and that's the level they start out with. And their first goal, I'll always try to coach you through these levels to make the stages go as quickly and smoothly as possible if you work with me. But it's also, I want you guys to be intentional about your careers anyway. For me, like, hindsight is 2020. There's a bunch of things I would have done differently, and I'm able to impart to my students about what I would have done differently. And because I've also been coaching people for all these decades, I've also seen patterns, and I've seen patterns in my peers who are not intentional in any way about their careers, meaning they just kind of accept what comes to them or doesn't come to them, or they try to push for an outcome and they're not happy unless they get that outcome. There's different ways that people approach careers that can make you very unhappy. And for those who don't know, there's a really high burnout rate in script supervision, especially when I entered the business. Like, I would see people's careers lasting 15 years. It wasn't so common to see someone say, yeah, I've been at it for 30 years. It's more common now, I think, that people, but there's a way that we strategize our lives so that we can have that stamina and have that happiness too. But it's high burnout. So if you are thinking about becoming a script supervisor, a lot of you here are script supervisors. You're in one of these breakthrough levels. I just want you to start getting intentional about it, whether you train with me or not. Start thinking about this, because it's what's going to set your career apart from your peers. You'll see a lot of people who feel like, for example, the next breakthrough stage, which would be going from indie to union work. Now in Europe, they don't have unions. In different countries, they don't have unions. So for them, in most of the countries, so for them, the equivalent would be from going from indie work to proper, the majors. In New York, they call it the majors. In England, they have a different term for it. If anyone knows the term, type it in the chat. Someone told me what it was when I did the original breakthrough talk. It's not like tier A, but it's like getting jobs that are considered properly paid, by industry standards, not indie pay, and stuff that you would see in the cinema or on TV. So going from, indie sort of low paid work, the next tier would be either getting in the union, which in North America means pay and benefits, and things you'd see on TV. In parts of the world that don't have unions, that would mean like getting on internationally recognized shows or nationally recognized shows, HETV. So that's not a network. Okay, because it's funny. I get requests. Sometimes I get referral request, like reference requests from HETV for my students. People would say, I'm calling from an HETV show and I need a reference for one of your alumni. So that's not a network. High-end. Oh, got it. Thank you. That's so funny. High-end TV. Yes. So going from indie to high-end television would be an example of the next breakthrough level of a career. Thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate that. So funny. I thought it was an actual network. High-end TV, but it could also mean, feature films of the level that you'd see at Cannes, or you'd see at, they'd be like top 5 in the cinema kind of thing. Like it also relates to features, but it's a difference of you're working with known directors and known cast as opposed to, low budget indie things. That's sort of the next level of breakthrough. And there are, there's a time frame that it would normally take, right? And I've been seeing people make bigger leaps and bounds. I used to say that getting your first feature would probably, for me, it was the first thing I got was an indie feature. So it took me a day, but most people do it within the first 6 months. That should be the goal, to get to that first breakthrough level, right? To get to high-end TV, in when I started, it was a 3-year average. So in the 1990s, I started in 91. So it was about a 3-year average to get to high-end TV, to get to union work, right? And I'm seeing my students some years, and it depends. It's a function in part of where you live, and it's a function in part of the kind of year the film business is having. So oddly, during the COVID crisis, during the whole crisis, I saw people get into the union within a year. Not normal. Like I would say, normally that's a 3-year process to get to that level of breakthrough. And I know that in the UK, because you guys have the option of working on set as assistant script supervisors, which is not an option yet in most of North America. It's about to change, thankfully. Sometimes people live in that comfort zone of assistant script supervisor for more years than 3 years before they break out into doing main unit script on HETV. But I mean, that's perfectly fine. It's all up to your comfort level. But I hope that people aren't doing it due to lack of confidence or lack of faith in themselves, because in most of the world, that's not not in most of the world, but in North America, it's not even an option for people. So people have to come out of a training program like mine ready to be a main unit script supervisor on set. So I hope that while I think that the assistant script supervisor model is amazing and lovely, and we're trying to get it here on a more regular basis, I also don't want people to feel stuck in that role because they don't have the confidence in themselves. And I say that as someone who was very shy for the first 5 years of my career. I was very shy. I have a video about it on my YouTube channel called The Confidence Factor in Script Supervision. Some of the ways that I've been able to break through in my own career, for me, and this is going to be different for everybody. For me, my first stage was overcoming shyness. I was very shy. I was very smart. I was very smart. I was very smart about visual literacy, about continuity, axis. I mean, more about eyeline axis coverage. I was very smart about those things, but you would never know because I was very, very shy. I had to learn how to stand up for myself and communicate to the director. So for many people, that's a first hurdle early in their career. And that sometimes keeps people stuck in the first breakthrough level too long. Or keeps people stuck as assistant script supervisors too long. When I used to train people on set, which I was able to do all throughout the 90s before the industry made it really, really hard for us to train people on set, an average length of time someone would be my assistant or my trainee is 6 weeks. So, most or all of an indie feature or 6 episodes of a TV series would be like, and I would see them start careers right after that. But I'm hearing stories in the UK of like people who have been assistant script supervisors for like 5 years. You don't need to do that. I don't think you need to do that, especially if you have well-rounded training. People who train their assistants on set in the UK are doing it to different levels, obviously, too. So it's also the level at which you're getting, and it's busy. It's set is a busy environment. So it's not like, people can stop everything just to train the person. So it's a little bit of a dance. I just don't want people to get stuck in that level. So for some, the way to shift that is confidence. Definitely another way to shift that is networking, right? It's really, really important to have a network of your peers, not only a network of production managers and directors. Obviously, we need that, but a network of your own peers. Because something I noticed over the years, and I still notice among my students, is my students are great because hopefully I've instilled this in everybody. But it's important to be good to each other, even though we are competing against each other, quote unquote. I hate that word. Like there is only one script supervisor on a movie, maybe a second unit person, maybe an assistant, and that means jobs can feel like they're more scarce. But if you have an abundance mindset, which we're going to talk about more, you're going to start to realize that might be the norm, but it doesn't have to be you, right? this year I was on the most luxurious film of my life. It's probably one of the years that most people would lose hope. I'll tell you how I got there. I mean, I am a 34-year veteran. I do acknowledge that. It's not that I'm a newbie. But also, I could have very easily been at home wallowing, thinking, this is a terrible year. I'm never going to work. And instead, I was on probably the best and most luxurious. I've never been on a film where uh, and we can only do one job at a time. True, we can only do one job at a time. So yeah, if you can get past and listen, I learned this as a stand-up too. As stand-ups can be really catty sometimes. They can be really jealous of like the success of their peers. All boats rise together. If the success of one person in your peer group can essentially mean it's going to get good for all of us. And wouldn't you want to rather be friends with that person rather than someone who's not talking to that person? I found over the years, what I was going to say earlier is that the people who lifted other people up were themselves lifted up in the industry. And that's the truth. It's like if you saw my interview with the makeup artist, Donald Mowat, who's the Oscar nominated makeup artist, who yeah, he was saying you've got to keep paying it forward. It's true. I've been trying to pay it forward from the day I hit the industry. Every single success I had, I shared with people. I never begrudge someone their success. It might not be my turn, but eventually it will be if I stay positive and really stay confident, and keep an abundance mindset. So I notice that sometimes people will get a job offer and it might be beneath them, they might be busy, and they'll just turn it down rather than referring someone else. Like if that's a very simple way you can lift someone else up. Just say, hey, I can't do it, but I know this person who might be perfect for it. That person will remember you and get you back in future. I guarantee it. My students, bless their hearts, my students will sometimes call me out for second unit on their TV series here, which I normally don't do. But when I need that work, and even when I do it, and just for fun, it's wonderful to know that that's someone thinking of me because I helped them, even if it was 20, 30 years ago. And they're like, hey, I know, let's get Daniela in. And I appreciate it, but I appreciate it like no matter if you have the sort of pay it forward mindset. Someone was telling me in the African American community, it's called each one, teach one, lift one person up and teach them everything you know. Yeah, it's like an each one, teach one. And it's not only about teaching, it's also about helping each other when we can. We are a community. And the more that we think of each other, of ourselves as a global community. I'm terrible with I can't stand borders. Okay. I've worked in 10 countries, but I cannot stand the whole process of like the whole idea of limits and borders. And because as you know, the film business goes wherever it wants to go in a given year. Mostly it goes to London, Toronto, Atlanta. But some years it goes but it moves around, right? It doesn't always love LA, although there's still a lot of the film businesses based in LA. It's hard. And if you think of yourself as stagnant, like this is it, I'm in this town, I'm in this level of career, and that's where I am, and that's the way it is. That's not hope. I mean, that's probably not going to help you get further, right? If you can think of it as a global community, one which you are part of and which you're contributing to, and where you make friends across countries, across cities, and definitely within your own city, then you can be there for each other when you need each other. And there are so many times when we need each other. So in the breakthrough from non-union to union, sometimes that breakthrough happens faster when you have a network, when you intentionally create a network. So I won't say her name. One of my students did it within a year during COVID. Within a year, she went from non-union to union. She went from, I can still see her sitting in my classroom. And I said to everybody, okay, within 3 years, a bunch of you are going to be in the union. Learn to manage your money, learn to manage your work-life balance. She came back to me a year later saying, I'm writing the trade test for the union, which is amazing. And she really nurtured she created networks that she didn't have before, because she's not someone who was, there are people who are born into the film industry. She wasn't someone like that. She just went out of her way to meet people during COVID, mind you. So if it can be done during COVID, it could be done during regular times. But normally you can expect this sort of 3 years where you're working your way towards the second level of breakthrough. And when you're working in, by the way, when you're working towards high-end television or union television, or cinema, you can also be intentional about the kinds of projects you take. I say this so many times in my career training. I have a lot of career strategy talks with my students, but no is a powerful word in the sense that it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative word. If you know, like I eventually knew that I wanted to be a comedy script supervisor, and you're getting like slasher film offers. Listen, I every year I hung up the phone when the Saw movies called. The Saw movies are shot in Toronto. I got called year 1, year 2, year 3. I was like, nope, sorry, can't do that. It's just not my jam. I don't begrudge you if that is your jam. I have a lot of students who love horror. They would be like, sure. And then they would have worked on the Saw movies, which is like a huge credit. I eventually met Lee Wanell, who created that franchise, and worked with him on Invisible Man. Great guy. If they said, oh, you're going to work with this great director, I might have thought about it. But no, I knew I wanted to be a comedy screenwriter. So I started getting very intentional about the direction of my career based on the scripts I was getting, which is something I always tell my students. But even if you're watching this and you're not my student, you have more control than you think. We obviously don't have control over the entire industry, right? And we can feel very powerless, knowing that the industry is going to do what it's going to do. The work's going to move to Eastern Europe, or it's going to move to Asia or Africa or London, and we can't work there, or we think we can't work there. By the way, it's easier than you think to work internationally. Watch my talk, Script Supervision Without Borders, on this channel to talk about the ways that I did it. But, the work's going to move. It can make us feel really helpless. There are going to be strikes that are necessary and important to the industry. Still, we can feel like there's a complete lack of control over our career. There's nothing we can do. We're just the victim of the industry. That's definitely never going to help you in your career. Victim mentality, even though times can be really hard sometimes. This is not an easy industry. It's not, we're basically gig workers at the mercy of industry trends in many ways. But what can we control? There are many things we can control, such as our mindset, right? The first time I did this talk in 2022, I didn't even really incorporate the things that I have since learned about visualization and manifestation. I've incorporated that into my business life and into my script supervision life. But having a vision for where you want to be, and you might not know right away, right? You got to sort of be in the industry a while in the early stages before you break through and go, you know what? I really love comedy script supervising. This is where I want to be. Once you start to get the mental image of where you want to be, you're already ahead of most of your peers who are just sort of going through the motions and letting the industry decide. That's in a way a form of victim mentality. It's not being proactive. You can be proactive without. It's a little tricky to explain because I want you to be proactive, but I also don't want you to feel like you can control every step of it. You can't. You got to leave some room for magic. And that's the woo-woo part of this. You've got to leave some room to be open to seeing what the universe is going to give you that you would have never dreamed up had you been very rigid in your intentionality about your career. Sorry, I'm getting off track a bit, but I'm going to keep going back to this throughout this talk. So something that might help make those early 3 years or speed up the process or make it better, having community, creating community, networking, that's equally as important as finding those early jobs. So if jobs are scarce or you feel they're scarce, there's always movies being made somewhere. But whether it's your feeling or the actual industry or both, instead of feeling like having a scarcity mindset, start to seek out your peers and start to do things to keep you active in the community, whether it's training or just whether it's meeting other filmmakers, anything you can do to still stay in the mindset of, I am a script supervisor. My intention is to, whatever your intention is. And by the way, there's no right or wrong. You don't have to want to be like on an A-list blockbuster movie if that doesn't make you happy. This talk is ultimately about trying to help you be intentional about what makes you happy. And if you're not happy, to be intentional about an exit strategy, right? Rather than, oh, the industry's over, I quit, it's a dumpster fire. It is a dumpster fire. It doesn't mean your life has to be a dumpster fire within it, right? I've seen so many people burn out from overwork, unhappiness, anxiety, worry. We have to do so much work as script supervisors on our own mindset, on our own self-care, because this is not a position where anyone else but us is thinking of our self-care, our mental health, our health, our physical health, our financial health, all of that stuff. And so, take a moment. I have a talk called, it's not on this channel. It's if you're in the program, it's maintaining work-life balance while enjoying your six-figure career in the film business. Because let's face it, it's still a six-figure career and you don't have to work all year for that. That's the potential upside if that gives you some degree of happiness. But if you're not enjoying that six-figure income, there are better ways to make a living, right? So keeping your joy is very important at all of these stages of breakthrough. But get it for the people who are watching who are in those early 3 years. I would say build your network, keep active, start to visualize the kind of career you want, and start to seek out those projects and production companies who are on that frequency. That's a woo-woo way of saying who are making the kinds of movies you want to make, who have the kind of vibe you want to be around. Do that. Start to do that research and investigation. Also, just start to think about the kind of set that you want to be on. Start to think about if your thoughts are, and I'm seeing this too much now, I'm seeing this way too much, where people's thoughts are consumed with, there's no work, no one's ever going to hire me again. It's like all this negative. If yes, probably like those things are there in the world, but it's kind of crazy making to really focus on all the bad things. It's anxiety making. And if you're someone who might think, well, denying the reality of that and starting to say that, well, no, but I live a life of abundance, and my script supervision career is going to go really great, and I'm going to work internationally, and I'm going to work with A-list. What's crazier, deciding to live in the positive side of the crazy and really being able to have the energy of embodying the I am a working script supervisor who's in demand, versus everything sucks and I'm never going to work again. If you're going to pick one kind of crazy, lean towards the positive, because it'll shift your whole energy, so that when you meet someone who's in the film business, or when you go to an interview, you're not carrying this burden of anxiety. This is not one, this is like a bunch of people that I'm seeing this happen to. And I think, people feel like this is the worst it's ever been. When I graduated my film program, it was 1991. We were in a recession until 1994. So I walked into the film business in a not abundant time, not even having any clue of how to get into a union. So I was in a pretty hard spot when I entered the business, and still it took 3 years. I got into a union, and then I had other hills to climb. Let's talk about those other hills to climb. You get into the union, you get into high-end television or cinema, but it's not what I call the A-list. So for me, obviously there's an A-list. The A-list can be award-winning movies that are international hits. For me, what I would consider my first A-list film was actually a low-budget union film called My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But that put me onto, really, when you think about the history of that film and how it really put romantic comedy into it had huge box office. It made over $600 million at the box office, even though they shot it initially for $5 million. So it was a real one of the biggest hits of all time. Like the Full Monty did that too. So the script supervisor on the Full Monty might have thought, oh, I'm doing this indie sort of film, but it broke through, right? It broke through. So there's the films that you do that break through like that, and then there's films that are already, they're coming to you at that level, like they have an A-list director attached, they have A-list cast. I mean, Oscar winners. I've certainly worked on more than my share of those. Or it's high-end television that is like BAFTA winning, Emmy winning, all of that. Although it's funny, Suits never won an Emmy. No, Suits eventually in the later seasons won Emmys, but for the first, I did the first 4 seasons, no Emmy, no recognition from the world for that work. It became streamed to over 13 billion people. And when it was on Netflix, eventually 10 years later. So sometimes, a show doesn't come to you as an A-list show, but eventually it can become that. But I talk about the third level of breakthrough being very consistently getting what I would call A-list work. And A-list, if you don't mean it, if I don't mean it literally, I can all mean it like literally. It's a box office hit. It's an award winner. You're working with award-winning people. You're working with people at the top of the industry, which I hope all of you get that experience. That's my goal, is to get everyone to an A-list experience who works with me in my program. But I hope every script supervisor has that experience. It can be eye-opening in many ways, because you'll learn that sometimes people get nicer at that level. Sometimes people get less kind of, it's interesting. Some people don't get nicer at that level, but you start to really see what the business does to people, and how the people who are really long-term in the business survive. And a lot of them use, they're the ones who told me, a lot of them use these positive visualization techniques to get to where they are as A-list actors, as A-list directors. You'd never think that, or maybe you would think that. I don't know. I never thought that. I thought it was cutthroat, that you had to be really competitive and harsh to make your way to the top. You know what I've learned over the years of working with so many A-listers? That it's some of the B-listers that are angry people, that are nasty and mean. Not the A-listers. The A-listers tend to be zen. They tend to use a lot, they tend to be spiritual. So whatever that means for them, whether they actually pray or they are into the universe and understanding that there's greater forces, and remaining humble and grateful in that. I learned that from A-list actors and directors. Who knew, right? Especially with everything we have going on in the industry right now with Diddy and everything. Although I don't personally consider him A-list. A-listers are chill. B-listers are still striving and a bit insecure. Yeah, and some of the D-listers are awesome. They're just happy in their space, right? Like Danny Trejo, right? Maybe he's a DC or D-lister, or like there's certain actors like that who are just a joy to be around, and they've been in like 100 movies, and they're happy. They're just happy, right? They're not they don't feel like they're lacking something if they're not on the A-list. So that's what I mean by define A-list for you. Like if you're working on the kinds of movies that make you happy, you're on your personal A-list, which is, I'm fully for that. I have a student who is the king of like the Hallmark MOWs here in Ontario. That would not make me happy, but for him it's joy. Like every sort of top Hallmark movie calls him first. He there's, the rates are different. It's non-union. He's so happy. He's being the king of something, I guess, can make you happy. And if it, he truly enjoys that medium. Some people love indie sort of slasher movies, and that's their joy. So whatever your A-list is, if you are happy, that's your next level of breakthrough. And that's about consistency, being consistently working on jobs that make you happy. For me, it was A-list comedies, even action. I started to do action blockbusters for fun because I could, because I wanted the challenge of trying to compete for these like really, really huge jobs. And I don't say compete in a cutthroat way. I mean, like, oh, I'm actually being considered for Shazam and Suicide Squad and all, these kind of huge movies that I'm like, why are they calling me? I was the shyest kid out of the sandbox, you know what I mean, when I started in the film business. But you'll notice that all those movies have a comedy element to them. So I was really, really able to be happy at work, even though they were action blockbusters. And it was just for me like another sort of challenge. How did I move from regular union films to the A-list? I think it happened pretty fast for me because I always say my training program serves the people in the first three breakthrough levels. So the Director Whisperer training program, which is my international training program, I think it serves best script supervisors in their first 10 years because it will take you about 10 years to get to the A list, right? It took me a little bit less than that because I think I was very lucky, but in hindsight, I also had that mindset of just joy, just keeping the joy in what I did, saying no, using the word no to help keep you available for projects that make you happy is a strategy. Okay, no is an answer and it's a strategy. It doesn't have to be a negative word. It can actually free you up. It's like in dating when people just keep dating anybody because they're like, oh, I'd rather date anybody than nobody. But maybe like dating this person who's bad for you keeps you away from like the really good person or people, if you're poly like me, the people who are waiting to meet you because your time is taken up with this dysfunctional person. That's what film can be like. You can be in a dysfunctional relationship with your own career. It's true. Just by accepting the wrong projects because you think, and part of that comes from your own mindset. Sometimes people take those projects because they think that's all they can get. They think that's what they're worth. I very famously tell a story to my students that I cannot say on YouTube, but I was on a show for a long time that refused to give me a raise. And I was under the impression that the whole crew was working for a cut rate, but it came to light uh, after many years. It came to light that the I was the lowest paid person on the crew, which was shocking because I had been there the longest and I was a department head. And that also that I was one of the lowest paid people in Toronto. And I was like, that can't be right. That can't be right. I'd already done some really, really big movies. Like TV is just something I did to keep my feet wet in TV because I don't like people pigeonholing me into one medium. So it's like, this is strange. So what can I do about it? And I went to my mentor. We all need mentors. I happened to have a mentor who co-wrote the book Lean In with Sheryl Sandberg. Lean In is about women leaning in the corporate boardroom or whatever the equivalent is for your industry, and asking for what they're worth and asking for a promotion, etc. So Nell Scovell was one of my mentors, and she guided me through this whole negotiation and rethinking of my whole life, right? And basically, before I was really firmly established on that A list, it took me leaving that show. It took me asking for what I was worth and then hearing no, and then me saying goodbye to allow myself to be available for bigger things. And it was the best move I'd ever made. But I think sometimes you have to work against what you think is a smart move, right? Someone who thought that everyone needs job security. I needed job security as well. I also, it wasn't even so much the pay itself as the notion that I was one of the more experienced people in the city and on the crew and making the lowest wage. I was like, that's just not fair. And they couldn't give me a justifiable reason. My mentor said to me, if they can't give you more pay, you should ask for a promotion, as in you should direct. I'm a writer. I have many, many, many students who are directors and who I've coached into directing. And if you're going to do that, television is the best way to go from script supervisor to director. It's like I can do it now, textbook, coach you into a directing career. But that wasn't where my heart is. Even though I love teaching people about directing, not where my heart is. I'm a screenwriter, I'm a performer, I'm a teacher, I'm a script supervisor. Those are the places, those are my happy places. So I did ask to write on that show, even though I mean, not even, it wasn't a Canadian show, so it would have been a super long shot. So knowing they couldn't give me that, knowing they couldn't give me a raise, I walked away. If you read Lean In, it'll inspire you to do the same. I actually had Nell coaching me through that whole thing. It can seem terrifying, but you know the old adage, If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. And I was ready for another breakthrough in my career, which for me, that stage was either going to be that I was going to write full time, or I was going to, because there's two ways. That's the next level of breakthrough, by the way, where you get promoted or you work your way beyond script supervision if you want to. Not everybody wants to. So for some people, their ultimate goal is directing. For some, it's show running. For some, it's writing. For some, it's acting. Whatever that is. But for most of you, it will be directing, because that's most of the time. That's the main transition I see that goes beyond working regularly on A-list movies and TV series, is directing them. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of my water. This is the viral Instagram. There's a thing on Instagram where you take ginger and lemon and turmeric. So that's what I'm drinking, if you're wondering. Okay, so yes, stage 3 is working consistently on A-list movies, whether it's literally the A-list or the A-list for you. You're in your happy place, you're in your happy zone. And above that can be, if you want to, go beyond that. So for some people, going beyond that means doing that on an international level. That was always one of my goals. That was something I did all the way through my career, and I do coach people into how to do that. But having an international career was important to me because I like to travel. And I like using my other languages. I have a European citizenship. I love working in Europe. But yeah, so going from consistent A-list and being on that A-list, let me tell you, some of you here might be on it already. Maybe not yet, but you will be there soon. It's definitely mindset work, okay? You have to believe you deserve to be there. That is more than half the battle. So me walking away from that very big show because they didn't value me, and I thought, okay, I can't control if they value me or not, but I can control how much I value myself. And I really did a lot of mindset work. I didn't take another job for 6 months. And not that I wasn't getting offers. I got many, many, many offers because they're like, oh, you're free. You're not on that TV series. Can you do this movie? And I was like, no, I can't. I mean, either it wouldn't even get to the stage where we'd talk money because it wasn't the kind of movie I wanted to be on. Or sometimes we'd get to the stage of talking money and I was like, I'm looking for a little bit more, or I just wanted to keep myself available for the biggest thing I could get. And I got there. Look, it wasn't the greatest movie, but I will call it a breakthrough in the sense that I was working on $100 million movie. I think it was 170 million. It was Triple X3. Not the greatest movie in the world, okay? Okay, there's an A-lister who's not necessarily chill as Vin Diesel, but there were, I got to work with Toni Collette and a whole bunch of other really great people, really wonderful crew. We shot in the Dominican Republic. It was a huge movie. Being able to be the main unit script supervisor on a movie of that caliber just opened every door for me in terms of having my pick of blockbuster films. I don't always like to work in blockbusters, by the way. You guys know my happy place is $30 to $60 million comedies. That's my happy place. And I'm always looking for that. They're not always available, but that's what I got to do this year. So getting to that level 3 breakthrough stage has so much to do with mindset and mentorship. I was lucky to have an incredible personal mentor. In other parts of my life, not in script supervision, I have business coaches. I need to hear from people who have done it. My mentor created a TV series and she's one of my mentors, but she's been so influential in my life. She co-wrote wrote a TV series, created a TV series, and wrote on several of my favorite shows, and was in comedy like Dream Mentor, right? So you need to seek out those people. You need to seek out not only community of your peers, but your mentors, people who've done it, that you can, because you need to, in a way, you need to see it to be it, some people say the real trailblazer doesn't have to see it to be it, but more power to them. I need personally more role models. I know this happened for a lot of women that I knew. They didn't really start directing until they saw more women directing with regularity, right? And the women that did it, like I worked with Mimi Leader, who was one of the first sort of A-list female action movie directors, who started out as a script supervisor, and I got to be privy to her own story. And she said they used to put us in the script supervision chair when they didn't know what to do with us because they didn't think women could direct. So she was able to parlay. In her case, she was able to go from A-list show to script super. She did it pretty quickly. She went to the AFI for cinematography. Very soon out of film school, she got the opportunity to script supervise LA Law, which was a big TV series at the time. And through that, almost immediately stepped up and asked to direct and got to direct. And through that, got to direct big action movies. That was a very condensed, for most people, that trajectory would take 20 years, right? Or at least 10 years. We wouldn't we wouldn't be surprised or say, yeah, it took 10 to 20 years. That's the trajectory of a career. That's how long it takes to develop your mindset and develop the courage to ask for it. And because it's not only about having the courage to ask for it, it's having the understanding that you believe it yourself, that you belong there, that you belong in the director's chair. So that the ways that I'm able to coach people through that is just half the work is getting them to believe it in their own soul, right? Because if you can't have faith in yourself, no one's going to have faith in you. I'm sorry, that's true on every level of script supervision, right? But certainly at the level of where you're asking people to entrust you with multiple millions of dollars of budget as their director. So as you progress to the different stages of a breakthrough, the next breakthrough in your career, which can be in a condensed period, the way Mimi did, or it could take more time. And I don't believe there's one way to do it. I believe I've seen things that really help people. So specifically, networking, staying positive. Don't try to cut other people down. Lift each other up. People will, if we lift each other up, the favor will come back to you. Try new things. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So if you are feeling stuck, get some coaching or get a mentor or just get unstuck, right? Half the battle is being aware that you are stuck and why you're stuck, and then working on that and seeing how things will pan out next year. So for me, it was walking away from a sure thing, walking away from a show that I was pretty happy on, until I wasn't, asking for what I needed to, make things more interesting or more fun for me, hearing no and going, okay, bye. I'm walking away from that. And I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm doing something I have not always done, because I don't want what I've already got. I want more. And then more came to me. You also, this is a longer talk, maybe for another day, but if any of you have done mindset and if any of you have done manifestation work specifically, let me know in the chat if you understand what I mean by this. Manifestation, in some ways, feels a bit woo-woo in the sense that you're getting clear on the life you want, but at the same time, you have to not be attached to that outcome, right? You want to be clear and specific and not be attached to that outcome. It sounds contradictory. And the hard part is being very clear and then letting it go and trusting that it will come. If you've ever done that kind of work, I learned that work in business. So when I started doing online business, that's when I learned that work, because everyone who was a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure entrepreneur, they had done many levels of that. And there are some great books on this. Oddly, one of the big books on that was recommended to me by an American American TV director named Salim Akil, who I love. Salim was on a show I did called Soul Food, the series. And it was around the time that the book The Secret was like going around. And I was like so skeptical because like everyone was passing around The Secret. And I was like, oh, and I was mocking it, right? And Salim is like, Daniela, if that is not for you, there's a book I have to tell you about because it changed my life. And he's like, I'm really like thinking you might not say yes to reading this, but I want you to read it. And I said, oh yeah, well, why do you think I won't read it? And he said, because it was written by a nun in the 30s. And he knew that I had like scars. I have like ex-Catholic upbringing scars, right? So I'm like, I'm not a very, certainly not a, I'm very spiritual, but not religious, but specifically because I was raised very religious. And Salim is an African American Muslim. And he said, this book changed my life. I used to be like, he used to be in gangs and like not, you know, he wasn't like living his greatest creative potential. By the time I met him on Soul Food, he was on top of the world. And he actually went further beyond that. And he said, the book is called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And he said, if you can like get past the fact that it's about, you know, that it's written in 1930s language, look at the message of it. It is all about manifestation, using mantras and all of that. And I read it, and then I didn't really like apply it at the time. All these things for me took years to sink in. So when I teach them, I hope that people use them faster than I did, because I read that book. And I read another book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Work Week, which is a classic. But I didn't start to implement the 4-hour work week until 15 years later, and it worked. But those are business things that, ironically, I learned about. The Game of Life and How to Play It is often recommended by business gurus who teach people how to manifest wealth and abundance, right? Ironically, I learned that from a film director, but that started to become something I actually started to incorporate into my mindset as I got to level 3, as I got to that level 3 breakthrough of consistently working on the projects that I want. I started to regularly believe that the right projects would find me, and they did. If I got passed over for an interview, which didn't, I mean, I often get I often get at least called for an interview. It's more often me, well, not now, but like in this 10-year period before COVID, I would always get the first call, always, in Toronto anyway, at least for an interview. And if I was interviewing against someone, I had a really, really high rate of getting hired as well, because I had worked out all my confidence issues. I had worked out my whole, you know, if I was walking into an interview, it meant that I had read the script and I wanted the job. Because sometimes I would read the script and go, this is not for me, and I would not go to the interview, right? Like, so this is how much I got into. That's the part I could control. Do I like the project? Do I want to be around these people? You know, all of that. Like, is this the genre I want to work in? Those are things you can control. You can say yes or no to that, right? I know that sometimes people say living in an abundant mindset means saying yes to everything. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, because I think it was an actor who taught me about the power of no. As actors, he came in to speak to our acting class, and he said, sometimes if you say yes to everything, you're not defining your career. You're not having the career you want, because you're not, if you closing one door leaves it, the other door being the path you can go on, right? So it's an equal parts trust that the universe is going to take care of you and bring you the projects that are going to be the projects that are right for you. Trust that, but at the same time, have a little bit of discretion in terms of what you know will not suit you. So I sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I live by both those things. Okay. No can be a very positive word in many ways. But also, if I was the first thing, if I didn't, let's say I went to the interview and I didn't get the interview, which would occasionally happen, I'd be like, okay, that means something bigger is coming. And that actually is the case. That actually was the case in hindsight. And, you know, at the time, it can feel like crap right now that if you're not getting called back and you're seeing your friends called back already to work as the industry starts ramping up. But you can control your reaction to that in the sense that you can go, okay, wow, so I'm going to be ready when the big one comes, because they're all going to be working, right? Which is true story. That happened to me so many times. It's like, oh, I'm not on that. Oh, but then I was on that movie, which ended up changing my life in so many ways, right? All of that. So it's never the end of the world if you don't get a job, even if you need the money. By the way, this is crazy. You guys are going to think I'm nuts. I free fall with money, meaning, like, you guys know, I travel everywhere. I don't stop traveling. If I'm not working, I'm traveling for pleasure, whether or not I have the money. Okay. I always trust that the universe takes care of me, and it does. I've never been in trouble. Like I've been in trouble in the sense that I've had nothing in my bank account, but stuff sorts itself out. I get sorted out by the universe. And I never experienced it to this frequency until many years ago when I decided to stop worrying about money. I'm like, I'm just not going to worry about money anymore. And I'm not going to worry about whether or not I'm working as a script supervisor, because when the whole world shut down in 2020, of course, I started an online business that changed my life. The other thing I did that year is, I'm a writer. I started writing. I'm like, oh, what? I don't have to be on set. I can write a script. That script won 12 awards. It changed my life to sit down and actually finish a script in that year. So that's what the universe wanted me to do. Sorry, I don't know if you hear the sirens. While they're going by, I will sip my Instagram viral ginger lemon drink. Are you guys with me? Is this helping? Do you guys know this stuff already? I always kind of knew about it. Like when Celine gave me that book, I'm like, yeah, I've heard of this and da-da-da. And even when I read it, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. But once you start to apply it and start to look at the patterns, you'll start to see that it's okay to let yourself free fall in a way. Like I'm not totally free falling. I'm still applying. If I read something in the trades and it's a director I want to work with, or it's a movie I want to work on, I will contact them. I'm not going to not contact them. I have students who are like, no, I wait for the phone to ring. It's like, why? You don't have to do that. We have the technology to send an email, introduce ourselves. When we're at level 3 and we're at we've done an A-list film and we want to do that consistently, we can make the first move. And I don't do it in any kind of aggressive way, but I'll help the universe along. I'll help and again, I have to be willing to accept if they're like, no, we're not going to hire you, but thank you for the introduction. All of that. I just have to take, I've done my part. I've selected a project I would like to work on. I've put my name forward. Whether I end up working on it or not is not up to me. So I don't worry about it after that point. Oh, great. This is confirming what I learned when I used to be an actress. Yes, it's so important for actors because an acting life can feel so powerless. We can feel so out of control, right? Because we literally are at the mercy of so many things that have nothing to do necessarily even with the level of our talent. Most things don't. By the way, even script supervisors, there are script supervisors I know who haven't even fully developed as script supervisors, and they're getting huge breaks. And you can't resent them for it. I know people who are like, that's not fair. No, don't resent them for it. Everything is happening as it is supposed to happen. As long as you are not shutting down your own opportunities with your mindset, your time will come. Is this helping anyone? Time check, 6:06. Oh, wow. I've been talking a while. The 5th level, I've added a 5th level to this breakthrough and thrive in 2025. And the reason it's important, especially in 2025, is because we've really been walking through the fire this year. Let us talk about this year, because I did, and I'm not gloating when I say I've managed to do the best film of my life this year at a time when the industry is on fire. That's not gloating. I am trying to inspire. Oh, thank you. Victoria says it's helping. Okay, great. I'm trying to inspire you into understanding. I had no money at the end of 2023 because I worked 5 days in 2023. Sometimes the universe says you're only going to work. I mean, I only worked 5 days on set. I also taught. I have my online course business. By that point, I had it. And I also spent a lot of money because I traveled all over the place. And that's me. I'm very irresponsible that way because I know the universe has my back. In late 2023, I read that A Simple Favor 2 was happening. Now, I did A Simple Favor 1 in Toronto, A Simple Favor in Toronto. Loved my experience with Paul. For years, he said, oh, when we do the sequel, we'll call you. But I couldn't bank on that, obviously. Because it kept getting pushed and moved. And finally, I heard that it was happening in Italy. But no one was writing me back to say, yes, it's definitely happening in Italy. Yes, it's happening at this point. Nobody was calling me back for the longest time. And I pulled my Italian passport out of my drawer and I saw that it was expired. And I was like, oh, damn it. If it goes in Italy, I don't even have a current passport. So I made, so there's this whole concept in when you learn about manifestation, it's act as if you already have the job. Okay. And that doesn't mean like in a crazy way, like act as if you already had if you already had the job, what actions would you take? I would certainly go to the Italian consulate and renew my passport. So I made the appointment, and it takes a long time. So it took like 4 months to get that appointment, and I had COVID on the day, and I was like, ugh. Now I didn't have the job. I didn't even know when the job was shooting by this point. And I called the consulate, and if you know anything about the Italian consulates anywhere in the world, but certainly in Toronto, extremely hard to deal with. Extremely hard to deal with, especially since my Italian is not the best Italian in the world. I called them and I said, "Listen, I have COVID. It took me 4 months to get this appointment, but I don't have 4 months to wait for another appointment because I'm working on a movie in Italy this year and I'm going to need to get there within 30 days." So I acted as if that was happening. And they made an appointment for me like the moment my COVID was over. They're like, "Okay, come in 10 days. Come in 10 days. We've made a spot for you." And it was like December 30th. It was like right before New Year's. This is unheard of. I got my passport. I didn't know if I had a job. 30 days later, I got the phone call. So I got the phone call 30 days later. Looks like we're shooting in Rome, and Paul has asked for you. And I was like, I was ready. I was ready because I had acted as if that was what was happening, right? So I mean, that's a very practical interpretation of what act as if means. But act as if you already have it means a lot of things. If you already were an A-lister, how would that change your energy when you walked into a job interview with an A-list director? It would completely change your energy. Trust me, I've done that exercise. It's like you deserve to be at that interview, right? So there's that kind of mindset in the acting as if. And it takes about 3 years when you first move to New York City or LA as an actor. Oh, that's good intel. Interesting. So the reason I'm talking about this today in relation to 2025, we've just had a really tough year. So yeah, I got the job. Spoiler alert. It was the best movie I've ever been on. It was treated like gold. We were put up at the Soho House, Rome, which is gorgeous. I worked with even more A-list actors than I've ever worked with before. It's going to be a spectacular movie when it comes out next year. I had to believe it was going to happen. And I really did visualize a lot on it, that it was going to happen, that it was going to happen in Italy, and I was going to be there. By the way, side note, I got to set and I met Paul's new producer, who I hadn't met because she wasn't on the original. And for some reason we were talking about manifestation, and I said, "Yeah, I'm a pretty good manifester." She said, "Oh, so am I." I said, "I know you are." She said, "How so?" I said, "Because we're all here, aren't we?" Producing in many ways is just really good manifesting. And then she laughed. I mean, that's a true story. Okay, so so confidence, networking, having some strategy, using no, but also trusting that the universe has your back. All of these things and more are some of the coaching techniques that I use with my private coaching clients, with my students. And I'm telling you this because we're about to enter like a year that's going to change the game for a lot of people. And I'm afraid, but maybe that's natural selection. I'm afraid that the toughness of the years we've just had has caused or will cause a lot of people to leave the industry. I mean, it's always normal. There's a lot of atrophy when the industry dips and then it goes up again. There's a lot of atrophy. We lose a lot of people who either retire or just give up. Like I'm sad when people give up, because you don't have to do that. I mean, maybe you feel like you have to do that on a financial level. There's things you can do on a practical level to take care of yourself, while you turn things around in the mental game, in the positive mindset kind of game of it. And I say game because I'm thinking of that book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. Another book that was recommended to me, not by Celine, but by other business people, not film industry people, is oh my God, I can see the name of the book. Napoleon Hill wrote the book. It's about rich people's mindset. Napoleon Hill wrote it in the 30s. I want to say oh my God. Somebody help me with the name of the book. It's a very, very famous book about the mindset people use to create wealth in their life. It's about mindset and getting rich. Anyway, if anyone knows the name of the book, type it in the chat. Oh my God, I'm blanking. But these are two like classics. They're two classics in this. If you want to start to go down the rabbit hole of manifestation, Think and Grow Rich. Thank you. Think and Grow Rich. And listen, it's not necessarily about being driven by money, because I'm certainly not driven by money, but Think and Grow Rich is about the mind wealth connection. And so you can use abundance. You Think and Grow Rich. You can use an abundance mindset in so many ways. Abundance is a different thing to different people. Abundance could mean you have a lot of grandchildren, because that might be someone's joy, right? Not mine, clearly, but it could be. Abundance could be wealth. It could be more than one thing. It could be having the career you love. Having an abundance mindset means keeping yourself in a positive frequency so that you will attract things that you want. First, you have to sort of know what they are, and then you have to create the energy of acting as if you already have it in many ways, or finding the people. So finding the mentors or the peers that will get you there. So yes, it's extremely important to network. It's also important to cut negativity out of your life too. That can be hard, especially when I started in this business. And for the first half of my career, I wanted everyone to like me. It's a terrible mistake. Now I don't care. If people don't like me, I'm not out to change their mind. If you don't like me, bye-bye. That's totally fine, right? It's life. We can't please all of the people all of the time. But if you want to please everybody all of the time, you're just going to get caught up in other people's dreams rather than pursuing your own. So many hard won lessons I've learned over the years. But all of these things, all of this to say, I have created a new coaching program that is upper level. So my Director Whisperer training program, if you're looking for a way into the industry, or you're in your first 10 years and you haven't hit the A-list yet, I greatly recommend you train with me or with a teacher like me. There's a few programs like that can get you there in the industry. I think there's three of us. There might be slightly more, but definitely there's three of us, and I'm one of them, who have designed programs to shorten that learning curve for those first 10 years. But what I started to notice is that more and more veterans would join me in my program, like people that were well beyond that. They were already on A-lists, and they would be there to seek community or just to seek reinforcement for stuff they already knew. And I realized I had to come up with a way to serve you guys, to serve them. I spoke with one of my coaches, and I told him what I do, because he's my new coach. He had to figure out what I do. And he went, "Oh, you're not serving a whole strata of your own students." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "What about all the veterans that you train? What about the people that are still trying to get to where you are or are feeling frustrated? Can you create something for them?" So I did. I've only announced it to my mailing list and my students. You guys are the people that are on the live, but if you're seeing this later, I'll probably, it's very limited, because I can't do this with, like, I have 500 students in my regular training program. It's manageable because of the way it's structured. But this is coaching. This is like I'm working in small group and one-on-one coaching with the people in the program. So he said, "What is the maximum you could do?" And I said 20. I don't think we're going to have 20. I mean, it's possible. I'm not poo-pooing that. Like, I'm happy if there's 20. I'm not saying to the universe, don't bring me 20. That's fine. But I'm happy to do it with 3. I've already got more than that. I've already accepted more people than that into this coaching program. I've called it the A-Listers Breakthrough Coaching Program, because it's a 5-week program of small group coaching and mastermind, because I believe in the mastermind. So mastermind is when you get people at a higher level in a room together or on a Zoom together. All of my masterminds that I've been in as a participant have mostly been on Zoom. We light each other up with our collective energy. There was a scientific study done where they put batteries in a line, and the charge they gave off was exponentially higher when they were put in a circle and facing each other. So our collective energy actually increases the vibe. We put this into practice in my writers' rooms. When I teach writers' rooms, which one of you is in, you know that like even having 2 or 3 of us, but certainly having 4 or 6 of us, idea jamming, yes anding each other, it elevates the material in a faster amount of time. And that's been my experience of being in business masterminds. So being in business masterminds, I like being the least experienced person in a business, and I usually am, because I'm a 6-figure entrepreneur. The people that I'm in those with are 7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs, right? So I get energy from them. I get ideas, I get inspiration. And I was like, we've never done this for the script supervision community. And I certainly have a lot to say because I do coach people one-on-one in this stuff, but it can be time consuming, and one-on-one can be effective, but also the mastermind thing, the group think, that is even more effective. So I designed this 5-week, this is the beta. So it's the first time I'm ever doing it. So I've started it at a lower price on purpose because you guys meaning whoever joins me in that is my beta group. So you're in a way, you're going to help me define like what is working better or not. We're going to be accountable to each other. Although it's 5 weeks of masterminds and training, I decided I'm also going to add a Facebook group. It's going to be small because I'm guessing we'll have about 10 people in the final group by the time I finish interviewing everyone. I've said no to a bunch of people just because they're not ready. I appreciate that people are excited to do this, but I want you to get to at least the second breakthrough level, if possible, before you start to take on my higher level coaching program, because I want it to benefit you at the exact time you need it. Okay. I made one exception. There's one person I've let into this coaching group because she's at this crazy crossroads in her career where she's just graduated my program. She just has done 2 indie features, and because of where she lives, they're pushing really huge shows on her, which is great on one level, but on another level, you have to have the confidence and mindset to survive that without burning out, without screwing up, just with going forward and landing on your feet for that. So that's the only exception I've made. That's why I do these pre-interview. I have to do, so if you're interested in that, it's the beta price is $697 US. I've sent an email to my group, but just reach out. I'll tell you what it's all about. It's going to be a 3-hour classes on Sundays starting November 3rd. We're off the US Thanksgiving weekend, but so I think it ends December 10th. I can't remember the last Sunday, but anyway, but it doesn't end there because it includes 3 one-on-one sessions with me as well. So you're going to use them when you need them in the year ahead. And we're going to have our Facebook group in the year ahead to be accountable to each other. And you guys know me because I'm always inventing courses and adding to them. I'm always adding to them. I'll come up with more for our beta cohort to be doing with each other in that year. But the intensive period is those 5 weeks of talking through these concepts on a deeper level and more, to motivate you, to give you a strategy and a plan and a mindset to enter 2025 and make it your best year yet. And for me, in some cases in my career, my breakthroughs happened by accident, but more and more as I got to those higher levels, they were quite intentional. Even though you can't control what happens in the industry, you can be intentional about your career. And I hope that I can help some of you get there, if not all of you who join my coaching program. Whether you join my coaching program or not, you could do this for yourself. Know that if you approach your dream job, like what visualizing it, trying to get there, know that if you're at least doing that, you're already ahead of most of the people who just let life steamroll over them and accept like what they get, right? Just know that you have more control than you think, even though the ultimate control is way out of our hands, and we also have to accept that. Any questions? Oh, I'll put the link for anyone who's interested in learning more about my coaching program. It's got, as you know, you probably know, but on the link tree in my bio, you can find my regular script supervision program, which is bit.ly/script supervisor. This one is bit.ly breakthrough 2025. I'll put that on. Is it letting me? There we go. Is it showing? I've written it. I don't see it on the screen. Show. There we go. So that's if you're interested in learning more about my coaching program. I'll listen. It's not going to be the last time I offer it. So I don't want people. Some people have written me and they're like, "I'm totally broke, but I want to do this." I don't want you to be totally broke in doing this. I want you to do it when and obviously part of the goal is that you won't be totally broke when you do the just some minimal coaching has made all the difference in my life. If you don't know the story of my business students know this story. There was one December, when my sales were like super low, like so low they were scaring me, like they were almost at zero in December, which should be my busiest month as a course creator. And I did the opposite. Instead of like sitting and accepting my fate, going, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be broke. It's gonna be a terrible year. I'm gonna be in debt." I took the last money I had and I got on a plane and flew to Miami for a mastermind. For a mastermind with my fellow. I'm a Samcart. I use Samcart, and I'm an affiliate for Samcart. They saved my life. I love them as a company and as the creators of that. And they were hosting a mastermind. Took the last money I had and went to Miami for this mastermind, and realized, oh my God, there are really nice people making 7 figures. And I realized my own money blocks. We will also talk about money blocks in the course, by the way, because money blocks can be huge. And one of my money blocks was, oh, but I can't remain a nice person and make 7 figures. Yes, you can. I met so many people there that did and were and had joy and were giving back to their communities, and we're still doing a lot. Like I still teach a lot for free, do a lot of things for free, and that's okay. Like I get joy from this, right? I'm not doing it out of whatever. There's no victim mentality. There's always giving. There's always abundance mindset and joy in everything I do. And if not, I won't do it, or I'll say no. But anyway, I came back from that mastermind, and the 2 weeks that followed that mastermind, I made $30,000. I've never made that much money in 2 weeks. Okay, and I tell my business students how I did that, but it was a very interesting study in myself to learn how much I benefit from being inspired by people. Some people do better in one-on-one coaching. Some people do better in group coaching, and some people do better in very small group coaching. And the small group coaching was what is missing from my regular program. So, okay. Oh, sorry. Comments. I'm off that screen. Were there any questions? Oh, Suzanne says hi. Hi, Suzanne. Does anyone have any questions either about how to break through in their own careers or any sort of frustrations they're having? It gets better. If you're struggling right now, just know that it gets better. And I have been saying that for a while. This has been a long stretch. I've had longer stretches. Listen, I tell everybody, when Toronto was targeted during the SARS era, we lost work for 2 years. I just went to where the work was, right? I had a gig in Malta in one of those years, and in Montreal in another year. Act as if that may be the case out there, but it's not affecting you personally, and you'll be surprised of what sets you end up on, because films are still getting made somewhere. You can bank on that with the film and television industry. Any questions? Wow, I really talked for a long time tonight. I will stay on for a couple more minutes, and then I will let you go. Again, if you are still at a stage where you're building your knowledge, please reach out to me for my regular script supervision program. Most of the people that will need this are either graduates of my program or veterans who are out there in the industry feeling stuck. Because that fifth, oh yeah, let me end on this because I didn't really do that fifth level, which is joyfully retiring. Retirement is okay. It can be phenomenal. Sometimes people get scared because they've had a whole life. They might have had 40 years or 50 years of being used to being given a job as a script supervisor through their contacts. And that's just, they're doing what they've always done. The difference is that their body is different. Like my body started changing in my 40s. I'm 55 now. And I can get, I don't have the stamina I used to have. I have to be very selective. Oh, thank you, Karen. I hope it helps and inspires. Yes, but retiring joyfully, I include that as a level of breakthrough because I see the difference it makes when you can figure out how to accept that you're going to retire and enjoy it. She wasn't one of my mentors, but she was like our senior script supervisor in IATSE in our Toronto local, Blanche McDermott. She went to get her 50-year pin from IATSE, and she had retired. She'd only been retired like 2 years by that point, and she was, I can't remember how old she was, but she stayed on the job a very long time. And I said to her, do you have any regrets? And she said, I just wish I had retired earlier. I said, really? Because she got her pick of work and all of that. She said, yeah, I didn't need to be working that long. I'm really enjoying retirement. So I took that as like, from, she was the master in our union local. So I took that as something to remember for me, not to feel the need to push it till I'm in my 70s on this job. I actually announced my retirement 2 years ago, and I still ended up on the best movie of my life this year. And I'll probably do a great movie like that next year, I hope. So yeah, that is the 5th level. And if that is the stage you're at, I can coach you through that, obviously, because I train people how to make passive income using social media in their businesses. That's another course I teach that I'm quite thrilled to teach, because it helps people thrive and survive in ways that are not on a film set. So either way, reach out to me. I'm here for it. Thank you for being at this talk. I appreciate it. I appreciate the questions, and enjoy your day. And just remember, it's not bad. It gets better. You are where you're supposed to be. And even if it feels ick in the moment, allow all the good things to come into your life. They will find you. Let them find you. Okay. Thank you so much.